On the broadcast tonight, Bahamas Air could soon partner with Caribbean Airlines.
The labor minister speaks out on recent labor issues.
And the quest for a championship starts. The Bahamas Tonight, the national report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, on his way home after delivering an important address in Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles.
And good Tuesday evening, Bahamas. I'm Altavis Munnings. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Prime Minister Perry Christie again signaling a possible partnership between the national flag carrier Bahamas Air and the regional airline giant Caribbean Airlines to provide airlift throughout the Caribbean. During his speech at the University of the West Indies at St. Augustine's CARICOM Leaders Lecture Series, the Prime Minister offered his perspective on the Bahamas' role in CARICOM and its future direction this past Monday. Julian Reed reports tonight from Trinidad and Tobago.
We are an integral part of the region. It is my firm personal view and the official view of the Bahamas that we all work better when we all work together.
Prime Minister Perry Christie speaking to the audience at UWI St. Augustine and reaffirming the Bahamas' commitment to CARICOM. In his address, the Prime Minister referred to the man under whose leadership the Bahamas joined CARICOM, Sir Lyndon Pindling. Mr. Christie highlighted three key reasons that Sir Lyndon gave for joining CARICOM. Firstly, common services. Prime Minister Christie highlighted the importance of air transportation, saying Bahamas Air and Caribbean Airlines might cooperate to facilitate regional travel. Secondly, functional cooperation in areas including trade, development, and emergency preparedness. And thirdly, showing a common front in relation to the external world. Prime Minister Christie said this is where leveraging comes in.
We must never forget in all our dealings with the extra-regional world to inform ourselves of the answer to the indelicate question, what is in it for CARICOM? Perhaps more properly put, the question should be, what is in it for the people of the region?
Mr. Christie said that all in all, it just makes sense for the Bahamas to be in CARICOM. The Bahamas is part of the region and will continue to work within the context of the region on a broad range of issues. And for the future, focus has to be on young people.
The Bahamas believes that investment in our young people, in their training, in the enhancement of their talents, in the sports and in culture, will inure to the greater benefit of the region. In a line, it simply makes sense.
Well, say what you want to say about CARICOM and the Bahamas' involvement in it. One thing's for sure is that we have more buying power as a result of our membership in it. And of course now, this international series, lecture series, continues next month with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. At UWI St. Augustine in Trinidad, I'm Julian Reed for ZNS Network News.
Claims of layoffs at the Bahamas telecommunication company surfaced today as the company's monopoly on wireless services comes to an end. Those claims by the opposition Free National Movement were squashed by Labor Minister Shane Gibson, who is placing the blame at the feet of the F&M for increased layoffs in the country since they first took office back in 1992. The Labor Minister shared his comments with our Janaea Noel Ferguson before the weekly cabinet meeting.
Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement, Loretta Butler Turner, says she's been reliably informed that jobs from BTC's call center could be moving to another jurisdiction like Panama.
This new negotiated deal, and if in fact they are we looking at the business model that Ericsson has employed in other parts of the region, whereby they have outsourced much of their technical work? And if that is in fact the case, the question is then raised, are Bahamians in fear now of perhaps being laid off?
But Labor Minister Shane Gibson is hitting back at the opposition. He refuted claims of BTC layoffs and pointed out that it was the F&M that started massive firings.
What happened to all the people who lost their jobs under the F&M? Something got to be wrong with his head. From 2,400 in 1992 to just around 700, plus or minus a couple in 2014. Now he's worried?
When asked if layoffs are being discussed at BTC, Gibson said he was unaware.
I don't know anything about any job losses. All I know is that under the F&M, the employee count at Batelco went from 2,400 down to about 700 now.
He also commented on other layoffs taking place, most recently the Hard Rock Cafe and Credit Suisse Bank.
I encourage those employees, if they have not received what they are entitled to up to today's date, then they have a right to file a dispute.
While some have criticized foreign groups for setting up shop in the Bahamas, then taking off without fulfilling their obligations, Gibson said they're not the only group at fault.
We got city market employees not compensated yet. You got Gladstone Farm employees who are not compensated. We got to worry about employers, not only foreign employers. Any employer have an obligation to take care of whatever benefits employees are entitled to.
The Labor Minister noted that these matters are under review by the government, which have now become a vexing concern.
These things, it upsets you. Every time you read the fact that companies are now moving towards consolidating services, re-engineering, restructuring, coming up with new fancy words, the bottom line is letting employees go, it is a cause for concern. So now we have to go back to the drawing board to make sure that the employees' benefits are protected.
Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Bradley Roberts is calling on government to appoint a select committee to investigate the terms of the initial majority share sale of BTC to Cable and Wireless, claiming the former administration robbed the Bahamian people.
Mr. Roberts' request comes as Free National Movement Deputy Leader Loretta Butler Turner has suggested that the government is lying about its recently renegotiated deal and says Bahamian jobs could be outsourced as part of that.
But Mr. Roberts says Mrs. Butler Turner suffers from what he calls short-term memory loss, as it was the F&M administration, which she served under, that negotiated a deal that will allow for Cable and Wireless to outsource jobs.
Former Prime Minister and the entire F&M crew agreed that Cable and Wireless Communication would decimate BTC after the first year of privatization and outsource all of its main functions to cable and wireless operations abroad. That is what Butler Turner agreed to. So I found it very strange that she would wound up on the front page of the dailies complaining about a deal that received the full sanctions and blessings of the entire F&M cabinet prior to the sale of BTC.
Additionally, Mr. Roberts said the record also reflects that over 500 high-paying jobs were lost following the sale of the majority shares of Cable and Wireless. He says CWC also held the exclusive right to appoint the CEO of BTC under its initial deal. Now, with that in mind, Mr. Roberts said there is no proposal before BTC's board to appoint Leon Williams to the post of CEO, as has been suggested by the F&M.
Further, there is no proposal before the board to outsource Bahamian jobs, and I'm advised that the BCC board chairman communicated that to the BC president, Evans. Bold and shameless lies of this nature from those who know better only score the need for the appointment of a select committee to investigate the circumstances and terms and conditions of the majority share sale of BTC under the F&M government.
Scotiabank met with employees today to inform them of the status of those plans, which the bank says will help to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of its operations. Uncertainty has loomed among employees since late January, when Scotiabank announced plans to relocate some of its operations and functions to its Caribbean South Shared Services Hub based in Trinidad and Tobago. In a statement released today, Scotiabank said employees expected to be impacted were presented with the proposed new operational structures that outlined the functions that will be centralized at the Trinidad and Tobago operation. While the move could possibly lead to layoffs at the financial institution, bank officials maintain that Scotiabank is doing everything it can to avoid it. In the statement, the bank said it hopes to minimize any impact to employees during the transition and reaffirmed its commitment to supporting its employees throughout the process. Scotiabank in this restructuring joins CIBC First Caribbean, which is currently in the process of a downsizing exercise.
In other news tonight, we have an update on the story we told you about last night.
Agriculture and Marine Resources Minister Vialfrey Gray hoping to bring some clarity to residents about the removal of cascarilla trees from the island of Acklins.
The minister, who's also the Member of Parliament for Michael, says that 390 plants were removed as a part of an experiment to be conducted at the Agriculture School in Andros as requested by the Prime Minister.
And Acklin residents, Minister Gray believes, have gotten the message all wrong.
As a result of that request, I made a request of one of the constituents in Acklins to access the plants from his yard, and he did that. He sent me some plants by mailboat, and those plants would have been shipped to Andros to be replanted at the school on a research basis to see whether these plants would grow in the soil conditions in Andros, which differs greatly from the soil conditions in Acklins. Of course, I am told that there are some people who were concerned about that.
Now, Minister Gray sees no reason why Acklins residents should be upset because the plants don't belong to them, but the people of the Bahamas.
Will tell Acklins people, and I intend to do that on Thursday, that all of the Bahamas belong to all Bahamians. And the fact that the government want to use a few bark plants as research material for the school in Andros ought never to be personal. It's one Bahamas. And the research, certainly in my view, if it is successful, will be a way to create a greater yield of the same bark for the people of Acklins, because we will be able to show them how to do it and harvest it in a more profitable way.
Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation Chairman Arnold Forbes announced a HACCP training course that will begin this Wednesday for persons involved in the food and beverage industry. The training is said as a part of the government's plan to establish a standards bureau for foods and services that will meet international standards. BAIC, he says, is already working on establishing a standards desk to begin the process.
We are opening a processing plant. If we want to export goods from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we need a standards bureau in place to certify those goods. If we want to export goods from BAIC, we will need that standards desk to successfully export goods from the Bahamas to the United States or wherever else in the world. It is also important that that standards desk and the standards bureau is enforced in the Bahamas, because it monitors and controls the entry of products into our country. It also monitors things like the vehicles we buy to ensure that they're not lemons. It monitors the food that we eat to ensure that we're not getting poor quality of food in our country in any number of areas.
A former chairman of the National Flag Carrier is proposing some major changes as government continues to reform the beleaguered airline into a viable entity. In fact, Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Bradley Roberts says Bahamas Air should refocus its efforts solely on the international market.
It is time for Bahamas Air to withdraw from the family island routes. Allow the Bahamian airline owners to service those.
It's no secret that for decades, Bahamas Air has been a strain on the government's purse. And while appearing as a guest on Darryl Miller Live Tuesday, Mr. Roberts called on the airline to play a greater role in developing the national aviation industry.
Bahamas Air, in my opinion, as the Prime Minister has said, should focus on bringing tourists to the Bahamas, a role that they played in a significant way during the tenure of Philip Bethel when he was minister responsible for Bahamas Air.
Atlanta, New York,
so forth, New Jersey and so forth, Philadelphia, everywhere they went. They brought the people in by large number. Procasima, that name is an old name. He was involved in the process and so on. Focus on that. We need to bring bodies here. We got Bahamas opening up and so on. We need more seats coming into this country. Bahamas Air can play that role.
Just last month, Bahamas Air commissioned its third jet, which will allow the airline to expand its international routes. Meanwhile, government continues its search for a strategic partner, and according to Roberts, the Prime Minister held recent talks with Trinidad's Prime Minister about forming relations with Caribbean airlines. But as a former chairman, Mr. Roberts always held a different view as to what government should do with Bahamas Air.
My view that the Bahamas Air should be given to the employees, let them invest their money and let them run it, and so that the country could have been rid of that responsibility of Bahamas Air. Bahamas Air has some...
Meaning privatize it?
Yeah, well, give it to them as far as I'm concerned. Give it to them.
Give it
to them and give them $5
Giving
million.
away your national assets?
But Darrell, you have to continue to prop that up for $25 million a year.
Yeah.
The country's latest traffic fatality victim remembered by his family.
And a new crime-fighting initiative outlined in the Senate last evening. Stay tuned. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.